Hello and welcome to Newspeak. I'm Peter Whittle. I'm joined this week by Amy Gallagher of Stand Up to Woke and indeed the New Culture Forum, and Dr. Philip Kiszely, Senior Fellow of the New Culture Forum. I'm afraid Rafe couldn't be with us this week, so there's a very large hole to fill. Sorry, Rafe, I didn't mean it in that way. But, I think we will have more than enough to discuss. Huge week, as I think you will agree, with the US election and the re-election of Trump. Just a couple of things that we have, first of all, before we discuss what's been happening. The Smith Lecture, as I mentioned last week, is on the 26th of November. That's our annual lecture. We've had great speakers in the past, Douglas Murray, Nigel Farage, Rod Liddell, David Starkey. This year it is Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the writer and campaigner, international campaigner. And it is in London. It's on the 26th of November. It's a Tuesday. It's in the evening. There are still some tickets left. So if you would like to come, please do best go to our website, actually, which is newcultureforum.org.uk, and then all will be revealed. You can easily find where you can go for tickets. That's the 26th of November. Now, also throughout November, we have a lot of locals events. That's with NCF Locals, our branches all over the country. I'm going to run through most of the events now. So, if you're near any of these places, then please do, and you want to come along, please do get in touch. Best thing to do is go to locals@newcultureforum.org.uk and register your interest. But we have them starting on this coming Tuesday in the evening in Brighton and in Newcastle. Then on Sunday, the 17th of November, in Edinburgh, we have a meetup, which is Alleluia Anyway, Notes on a Choral Counterculture. That sounds rather intriguing. And then Monday the 18th in the evening in Liverpool, we have a guest speaker there at the branch there, Peter Barnes, who you might know from GB News. He's a campaigns director and commentator. And then then following that on Tuesday the 19th of November, 6:30 in Bournemouth. Then again on Sunday the 24th of November at 5:30 in Birmingham. And we have there a guest speaker, Tom Bowen, who is the man who started the King Alfred School, who's been on the show a number of times. So a lot of events there. It's fantastic. So best thing to do, if you heard one of the towns there, I'm near that, I'd like to go to that, then just go to locals@newcultureforum.org.uk. Notice is out of the way. It's been a big week. We're used to having rather, serious stories on here. This is a serious one, but I think, for me anyway, it's a happy one, Amy.
Yeah.
Right? Well, what do you think? What's your view? We had the, landslide, or as near as it gets to a landslide, victory for Donald Trump.
I was just saying before we came on the show that it's not really being represented as a landslide in the media. Like it's kind of, I think it's been dumbed down a little bit, dulled down a little bit. Yeah. That it doesn't say, it didn't say landslide win. It was just kind of, Trump wins and then can we move on to the next thing? But he won everything. He won all the swing states. He won the Senate. He won the House. He won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College. So he's done better than he's ever done. We all said on this show, didn't we, that we thought that he would win. For me, really, I think after the assassination attempt and how he reacted to that and what the scenes of him saying fight, 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 to me, that was the moment when I thought he's going to win. I think that was the point for a lot of people. But of course, the liberal left-wing media, right up until the election, they were saying that it was, either they were saying it was neck and neck, or many people were saying that Kamala was going to win. And I think I felt in my my instincts were telling me that he was going to win. The betting odds were saying that he was going to win, but you can never be too sure in these things. So it has come as a massive relief, because I think, as many of us thought, that this was a huge election. I know we always say that about American elections, but I think it was Elon Musk that said on Joe Rogan that this might, if Kamala wins, this might be the last time we have a proper kind of democratic election in the United States. That people really did feel that so much was at stake. And just what a relief that it wasn't Kamala and the Democrats, because who knows what would have happened. So, it's good for us and it's good for the world, I think.
I think so. When, the Elon Musk made this point about it being possibly a last election, The point was about what they've been doing, the Democrats, isn't it, with these illegal migrants? And essentially, they have been giving them, or will give them, the right to vote, which is quite incredible. And they have been basically putting them in these very, very sensitive areas, where in fact it could make a difference. So, I mean, that's extraordinary. What was your reaction?
Well, again, like Amy and like you, for me it was just an utter celebration. It put me in mind of Brexit in 2016 and the Conservative win in 2019. Now, we all know what happened after that. But we did call it last week, all of us. So I think that does need to go on record, because certain other podcasts really didn't. She's been calling Trump literally Hitler. He's been called a neo-Nazi. He's been called a fascist. If that's your strategy, if that's how you're dealing with your public, if that's your intellectual level, which is a kind of, in this country, a kind of sub-GCSE level, then yes, I think he was, for me, when I was hearing that kind of rhetoric, as seriously wheeled out, for me, he was going to win. But I mean, look at him. He's 78 years old.
God, it's incredible.
Yeah.
He's 78 years old, and yet I think he did 4 rallies in one day. Okay, that's one thing. This has been picked up before. I think I've mentioned this before, but he is physically courageous. The man is shot. He falls down and he gets straight back up. But also, it's his genius as a politician, and I don't say that self-consciously. This is a man who dominates social media. He is absolutely the opposite. They loathe him, and yet he is better on social media, which is the medium. Okay, he is better on social media than the whole of the Western liberal elite. He knows how to maneuver, manipulate, make the best of the broken institutions of fractured society. And ultimately, he speaks for people. He speaks for the working class. He actually speaks for black people and Hispanics. Okay? There is something about the man which is extraordinary. And the more they hate him, the more they tell us that they understand that.
Do you think, has your attitude to him changed? I mean, mine has, in the sense that I actually personally, as a personality, like him in a way that I didn't before. I did.
Precisely.
I would support him, but I found him hard to take. But I don't do anymore.
Yeah, I think I like him more. I think there was always a question mark in my mind as to how much of what we see of him is a persona and what he's really like behind the scenes. And actually, I think the assassination attempt and the way he's dealt with all the lawsuits, you realise this is just an extraordinary human being. It's not for show. It's not fake. He is somebody that just fights, in a way that most people can't. And you do realise that this is a kind of a leader that we haven't seen for a long time. I think he will go down in the history books, in centuries to come, that it was something quite extraordinary in terms of what he faced and how he managed it. So I do feel more that he's more genuine than I thought. Not that I didn't think he was disingenuous, but I realised actually this is what he is as a man.
He's certainly been funnier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always felt, so I'm not trying to, be clever or anything after the fact. I always thought he was going to win quite big. I mean, even when they were sort of saying, it's getting very, very narrow and all of this. And I sort of thought, actually, this is a lot of wishful thinking. What was interesting, point of view of identity politics, is he was up in virtually every group.
Yeah.
He was up by 16 points amongst Hispanic men, up by 9 points amongst black men. And across the board, he was up in all these groups, apart from white women. Do you have any sympathy with this kind of vibe that there was, or, that basically it was a kind of very macho and, it's not anti-women, but sort of like rather alienating for women?
I didn't find him alienating. I think he is, he's obviously he's a strong man, he's an alpha male, but to me it's always kind of the positive side of that, I think, that's come through more, that he is just brave, he's courageous, he's a fighter. It's a positive masculinity primarily. And I also think from the perspective of women, he has been very strong against standing up to kind of the transgender madness and defining a woman. So you have this strain. I mean, you have some feminists saying that he's, you know, a rapist and he's a sexist and he's a misogynist and all of this, but actually, you know, from a lot of us who care about being able to define what a woman is, that's why him and JD Vance were quite appealing.
Yeah. I think he just serves as a catalyst for change. In some ways, it really doesn't matter what his personal characteristics are. It's what he will mobilise and how things will be different in the future. I mean, they all say the same thing, don't they? You know, they're blaming everyone apart from themselves, and they're giving him no credit whatsoever. So it's racism, it's sexism. They're even blaming black voters. They're blaming Hispanic voters. They will blame absolutely everybody. But the reality is that, as Amy says, he's done something absolutely extraordinary, and the worst thing about him for them is that he is the ultimate alpha male, you know. And so what that means, certainly in terms of policy, in terms of the gender stuff, in terms of foreign policy, that's going to impact massively. Those, if we're talking about personal characteristics, that's when they're really going to kick in, you know. And for, you know, the ultimate alpha male teamed with the other ultimate alpha male, Elon Musk, to win and not only win but to obliterate, to dominate. It's a hard pill for them to swallow. And I'm hoping, I mean, we'll probably come on to this later on, but I'm hoping that this is going to reverberate, and we our own disruptor, I suppose, if you like, and that's what Trump is. He's a disruptor. Our own disruptor, Nigel Farage, will take this on board and be more Trump-like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it absolutely has been a huge boost to the likes of us, but also, as you say, generally across the West. I would say certainly in this country, because before, it could be slightly dismissed, or rather you could sort of say, well, what the hell have they done? This time, everyone knows what they're getting.
Yeah.
And yet they still voted in greater numbers. What sort of strikes me, too, is the sheer wealth of talent. I mean, I know we sound like we're going overboard, but let's face it, most of the time, we are ruining various things that have happened. You've got, you know, as you say, Elon Musk. You've got Vivek Ramaswamy. You've got the likes of sort of Ron DeSantis, J.D. Vance. I mean, to me, J.D. Vance looks a bit like a president already. You know, I mean, I don't know whether you agree with that, but it's the sheer level of talent compared to the Democrats, who basically were a bit of a clown show, weren't they?
Well, absolutely. I mean, what you've also got, I think, with Trump this time, which is different to last time in 2016, is an incredibly professional backroom team. Okay, so we think about his campaigning, and the man is an incredible campaigner. He was enjoying himself. You know, he was working at McDonald's. You know, he was in a garbage truck, and the man just looked completely at home. He looked completely at home because he was performing. He enjoyed it. Okay, but what we have is that professionalism juxtaposed to, as you say, the ludicrousness of the Democrats, but also, if we're looking at some of the mental breakdowns that we've been seeing online, and not just from idiots online, but from major figures in politics and in media, we're seeing something of a stability versus a decades-old mental health virus, I think. And that mental health instability has come from identity politics, has come from everything they think. People are not only tired of that, they're also frightened of it now a bit, because we've been looking at some of these meltdowns online, haven't we? And looking at some of the commentators in the mainstream media. Some of this stuff is really bizarre. Some of this stuff is quite frightening. And I think most people are thinking now, let's get away from that road. Let's get our children and the future away from that road, because it's clearly harmful. And that's one of the things, that's one of the big takeouts for me. If we are going to have real change, it's that sense of, well, just that stuff now is in stark relief. Okay, let's have something a bit calmer.
Did you, joyful event, but also I did get a lot of pleasure out of watching these meltdowns. Was there a particular favourite of the?
I think the Channel 4 Emily Maitlis, and she swore on air, and she had to be taken off air, and then Krishna Guru Murphy had to apologise for her. So I mean there were loads of meltdowns actually on the election night on that Channel 4 show. There was people like Simon Sharma and Brian Cox, the actor. They just come out with this kind of, I don't know what happens to their brain, but they just say, oh, he's a fascist, he's a monster, he's insane. And you think that's not an argument. Well, if you're going to make those arguments, at least explain why he is a fascist or he is insane. But they don't even think that they need to do that. They just need to come out with all of this bile that he's all of these things. That he's mentally unstable and he's a psychopath. And I've always found that, I always think that you should be careful with calling him, mentally unwell, because, we saw with Joe Biden, somebody he was genuinely cognitively impaired, and actually I think Trump is pretty sharp cognitively, so to go after his cognition seemed to me bizarre from their perspective. And Kamala Harris as well, she seemed to be very, half the time it seemed like she was kind of a bit high or a bit drunk. She didn't seem like she was all there in some of her interviews, but they still just don't get it. They actually openly say, I don't understand why all these people voted for him. And you just think, but because you don't listen. They don't want to hear why they just think that they shouldn't have to make the argument. Yeah. He is just beneath them. The way he conducts himself, his manner, everything about him, they shouldn't even have to engage with him. They shouldn't even have to have any kind of argument. And they just think that the other side are just, deplorables and garbage, and they've not learned. And it just feels like deja vu, actually, seeing all these kind of reactions. And you do wonder, do they want to learn? Are they interested? Are they curious at all? And it doesn't seem that they are.
I don't think so. I felt that when one of the more famous ones was Rory Stewart on that podcast, which I call an establishment podcast. It's with Alistair Campbell. And he sort of got everything wrong. And then he sort of went into this big mea culpa about getting
I'm a nice person.
Yes, exactly. Which was essentially more or less saying, don't blame me because I'm only just trying to look at the bright side of life.
This is all about worldview and narcissism in a way. So, you've talked about politicians and commentators, celebrities, or quasi-celebrities. So David Baddiel tweeted something about, hate has won, And actually, if you're thinking about hate, it's actually the side that you think is virtue, virulent anti-Semitism, demonization of the working class, giving Pakistani grooming gangs a free pass. That's all virtue. But standing up to those things and working class people saying, children being slaughtered in Southport, maybe that is terrible, and maybe we can get angry about that. So it's this worldview. It's a kind of upside down morality that, if they think about it too much, their whole world falls in. I think there's something there. They're so married to this worldview. It is them. What they think is what they are. And if someone like Trump can destroy it in an instant, then it says that worldview is very fragile and actually ludicrous.
Yes, you actually do have to retain every piece of it, don't you? Otherwise it all sort of fades away. Do you feel, though, I was looking at it, because in America, the networks far less powerful than they used to be, and they are pretty much solidly Democrat. Here, there's still this residual feeling that our main broadcasters are not actually somehow so partial. It still lingers. I'm not just talking about the BBC, because There have been a few articles this week saying, why does ITV hate Trump so much? And to me, and you mentioned Channel 4, it could be the same as Sky. It's the same thing, with the exception maybe of GB News. But I just wonder, to me, it feels that what they are fighting now is irrelevant.
Yeah. They're losing their grip. I think the status of celebrity, of mainstream media has been totally undermined in this election. We saw it with Trump going on these podcasts, these alternative media podcasts, and having great success. And actually, people are saying it was that Kamala Harris should have done that, and it was what was lacking in her campaign, probably because she couldn't withstand a 3-hour podcast. She couldn't come under that level of scrutiny. But I was struck by, actually, on MSNBC, one of the correspondents, Joy Reid, she came out and she said, how could Kamala Harris have lost? She had a perfectly... there was no flaws in her campaign whatsoever, which is just a remarkable thing to say. But her explanation for that was, well, she had all the celebrity endorsements. She had Taylor Swift, she had Jennifer Lopez, she had Beyonce, everybody was endorsing her. So how could she lose? And there doesn't seem to be any idea that those things don't matter anymore, that celebrities, people do not care so much about celebrities. Hollywood is not what it was. People don't watch the Oscars in the way that they used to do. And actually people are, forming their own ideas from watching different channels, from accessing different sorts of people and role models. And just wheeling out Beyonce just doesn't cut it. But they're still thinking in that paradigm.
Yes. Yes. How can you possibly say with a straight face it was a perfectly run campaign? It was a disaster.
It was a disaster.
She was the ultimate,
It was a disaster from start to finish. But they say that, and then what they say is, well, she would have won if she were a white male. Okay, so that tells you the level of self-deception, the level of actually craziness. And it comes back to the way people think. It comes back to identity politics. Everybody is just a woman or black or disabled or this or that. And people are sick of it. But the thing is, if you let go of that worldview, as I said before, you literally have nothing.
There was one great clip, I thought, which was actually CNN. And I don't know the name of the guy, but he really gave the people there, they had, Anderson Cooper and the other people all sitting around. To be fair, they all listened to him, but he gave them a cold bath about what this was actually about, really. And, and it was quite refreshing to see that on something like CNN. The only thing is, I don't know what you feel about this. You say, it's like you're a black woman or you're a white man, this and Hispanic or whatever. Even commentators here and in America were just simply discussing it in these terms. It shows you how far all that stuff has gone. What was completely absent, it seemed to me, was class.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to talk, did we not, about voting in terms of A, B, C, D voters, C voters, such like. We see that. I mean, assumption is made that obviously, and I think it's right. Oh, yes, I tell you what it was. What's actually taken its place is education. All right, so basically, Kamala Harris did very well or continued to have the support of college-educated white women or whatever. But to me, I don't know, but education and going to college are two completely separate things now.
Yeah.
I mean, to me,
aren't they? Yeah.
I mean,
and they don't signify success either, or economic, success or anything. No. In fact, as we often talk in this program, it often means you learn to be stupid at university. You come out with all these silly ideas, and you can't read the room. No,
I think the reason class, and it's the same here, is the great big elephant in the room, is because they loathe those people. They loathe the working class, and they don't want them to have a voice, no matter how they talk and use them. They don't want them to have a voice. What Trump can do is speak directly to those people in an incredibly dynamic way, because for one very, very obvious reason, he eschews all the nonsense, all the vocabulary, all the jargon, all that goes out of the way, and he actually tells the truth. And that's really, I think, what it comes down to when it's working class people. They just want to know the truth. As we all do.
Yeah.
You know, and I consider myself to be working class.
I mean, that
as well,
was that was one of Emily Maitlis's objections to Trump on that Channel 4 show. And it's the reason why she swore and got taken off, is that she was saying his comment about Haitian immigrants eating the cats or eating the dogs. She said there's half of us that just think that's an unbelievably absurd, outrageous thing to say, and there's another half that don't. And she was saying, you know, I mean, she actually used, I won't swear, but she used a swear word to describe how crazy it was. Where most of us would just be, as you say, he's just talking plainly about something that's happening that he's seen. And most of us will, what's wrong with that? But they cannot stand that. They cannot stand that someone can just call something out and name it as it is, because they've been brought up in this elite world where you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to notice things. You're not supposed to say it. If you say it, you've got to say it in a certain way. But he just does not play by that rule book, and they cannot stand that.
And of course, their whole worldview just is built on lies. You know, it's all lies, isn't it? You know, they're saying that Britain is institutionally racist, or it's you know, is the most terrible misogynistic country. It's just simply not true. So there's a difference between ideology and truth, and Trump clearly stands for. It's amazing that we're saying this, because you know, certainly 10 years ago or 8 years ago, I probably would have thought, well, does he? But I think, you know, having seen much more of him now and seeing how he's handled himself in this campaign, he absolutely does stand for
But haven't we all hardened a bit, or shall I say, not hardened, but sharpened our focus?
Yeah.
I mean, what is at stake is much clearer than 8 years ago. I think one thing, by the way, before we move on a little bit, that I was just thought was joyful, which it just was going to happen anyway, but nevertheless, he's really going to make a big deal about it. He announced yesterday that there's going to be a big national party for the 250th anniversary of the founding fathers in America. Now, I don't know whether you're far too young, both of you, I'm sure, but there was a big deal in 1976 with the bicentennial, huge thing, and it was a major thing. There's going to be another one of those because it's 250 years now, and there's going to be a big national fair, a little bit like the sort of thing Britain used to do very well, you know, like the Crystal Palace and the Great Exhibition. And I just thought, fantastic. The way he announced it, we're going to bring everyone together, and I thought he's giving people something to look forward to and something to celebrate. And I thought, thank goodness he's going to be in charge during that period, so it won't be something that ends up like the Millennium Dome did here, you know.
I mean, imagine what it would have been like. Imagine what those celebrations would have been like. They would have been a national self-flagellation month, year.
Yeah. But this is the thing. I mean, Kamala ran on her kind of campaign was called Joy, but actually there's nothing joyful about it. It's all, you know, self-hate and loathing. Actually, Trump is very joyful. He does bring things to celebrate and to feel good about America and the West and so on. So yeah, he is the joyful one, I think.
And sorry, just to finish the point, one of the things I always see all the time are tons and tons of pictures of his family.
Yeah,
and I think that's really important.
There's a big one today.
That's the one I'm thinking of. Also, a couple of our, you know, sort of kind of better known people are, you know, sort of rubbing shoulders with them. Obviously, Nigel Farage has been over there. And Douglas Murray, actually, also put a picture of himself at Mar-a-Lago, which was very interesting. Speaking of which, we've got a foreign secretary, haven't we, who's talk about, you know, student politics, has called Trump all of those things. Do you think, actually, it's worth discussing, do you think he should actually resign? Should he just stop being foreign secretary? He called Trump racist, misogynist, homophobic, just about everything, sociopath, and then a Nazi, did he not? Or he called it something like that. And you sort of think, okay, people say, oh, it's just a rough and tumble, don't they, or whatever. But he's foreign secretary now. Yeah, unbelievably, he's foreign secretary now, and he wears trainers as well. It's not just David Lammy. Angela Rayner called Trump a buffoon, and this, you know, this is coming from Angela Rayner. Not fit for office. Keir Starmer's said stuff about Trump. So it's all of these senior figures, the cabinet and the prime minister. Kemi Badenoch very recently just gave them a really hard time on this in PMQs, and I'm delighted that she did. No, I mean, David Lammy needs to go. There's no way. I can't see how his position is tenable now. How can our foreign secretary go and talk meaningfully with the president of the US when he's described him as KKK and a neo-Nazi and all the rest of it?
I think he needs to be asked about those comments and if he still believes that now. Because if Trump is a racist KKK Nazi, then of course that will mean we have to deal with him very harshly, to deal with him very differently. But he seems to be saying, "Oh, congratulations to Trump, isn't it? We're getting on well now." You think, well, do you agree with those comments you said or not? And denounce them and apologise for them and say, actually, you've changed your opinion of him. He actually isn't a fascist. He actually isn't a member of the KKK or whatever he was describing. But he's not doing that. And that's the issue, is that they think that they can get away with it and it will be forgotten. But how is he going to go forward? I mean, this will keep coming up. So I think
of course, if he had any integrity at all, and he really thought that, clearly he doesn't really think that, but if he really did think that, then he would resign because he wouldn't want to deal with
exactly.
Hitler, would he?
Well, exactly. This is the point. People made this point about Kamala Harris actually as well. There's a kind of official handing over she has to do and all of that. And basically say, if you really do think he's literally Hitler, then you wouldn't want to cede power to Hitler, would you?
No.
In other words, what it really means, they don't mean a damn word of it.
No, of course not.
They don't believe what they're saying.
No, they don't.
Simple as that. They just throw these things around. You mentioned Kemi Badenoch there. Since we last met, actually. It was that last Saturday, wasn't it? She won the leadership of the Tory Party pretty fair and square, didn't she?
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, basically, when you looked, she had her first outing, didn't she? You said she did quite well. Do you agree with that?
I thought she looked great. She spoke okay. I think it was quite an easy win to go after David Lammy in relation to his comments. I mean, she's very good at doing these things that read very well on social media and picking out things that, people care about. I guess we would need to see a bit more substance from her going forward. That's what I'm concerned about. I mean, obviously she's just started, but she also needs to be focusing on more serious. I mean, it is serious in one way, but less of the cultural stuff and more kind of economics and housing and immigration. I mean, that's the one worry that I have of her, is that she isn't going to focus on immigration or the asylum seekers.
The thing is with this, I sort of agree. I think, actually, I certainly disagree with you guys here. When she was at PMQ, Prime Minister's Questions, she had the chance to really have the broad view, instead of which she was playing what you call a minor thing about Lammy that will fade. It will go away. She had the chance there to really actually go and for something broad and sort of what I call Thatcherite. But that's me speaking. But she didn't. And I don't know about you, but I people I meet who are not so involved in and not swimming in these waters that we swim in every day, they're not even aware, actually, of this thing having happened, i.e. a new Tory leader.
Well, I think a new Tory leader, with everything that's going on at the moment, for people who are aware, is fairly low down on the agenda. And it was I think it was the lowest turnout for the vote.
Was it?
Yes, I think it was. I think I saw that on Saturday
amongst members.
Yeah. So that says quite a lot. And we called this as well. I think on the show we said she was going to win, but I think most of us wanted Jenrick to win.
I think
get worked up on it.
I mean, there's pros and cons to both of them. I think on balance, probably Jenrick.
But she. What's interesting is the way her cabinet's shaping up. So she has Jenrick. She's got Priti Patel.
What's he doing? This shadow.
He's Foreign Secretary. Priti Patel is.
He's Justice.
Yeah, that's right. And she's got Priti Patel, who says lots of great things, but doesn't probably really do too much. When she was Home Secretary, Rwanda, and look where that came in. But at least she is from the right of the party. I'm trying to make the best of it here.
It seems to me that it's like what they call, I hate this word, but the continuity team, isn't it? I mean, this guy Chris Phelps is the Home Secretary. I mean, these people, they're total and utter nonentities.
Mel Stride.
Mel Stride is the
Mel Stride is the
Chancellor.
Chancellor. Isn't he the one who's virtually like a Lib Dem? Mel Stride?
I don't even know, because
He's got a business background, so being a chancellor, I suppose that's a novelty. That's a novelty.
Is he good at maths? Yes.
Yeah.
But it seemed very, very, very
uninspiring.
low-key. I suppose what it is really is when we've just been talking about Trump, and we've been talking about the whips of vision, and you sort of look at our Tory Party in this case, and you sort of think, God, boy, this is really like village hall stuff.
Yes.
That's how I feel.
So mediocre.
And I think when you're thinking about Trump, and then you come back to Britain, then you automatically think about reform and Nigel, because they are supposedly they will be the disruptors. They have been so far, but I suppose again, this is what I said earlier. I think Nigel really needs to look at Trump and look what Trump has done and how he's done it, and bring that over here.
I think yes. What do you think about this idea of him being some kind of envoy? What is it? This. He was talking about it himself.
Yeah, being an intermediary between Trump and the government. I mean, it's odd because he is now a member of parliament himself within his own political party, but he still seems to function on this idea that he's sort of Nigel Farage, the sort of political figure, or sort of something separate. So he's really got to work that out, kind of how he's presenting himself. Is he just in it for himself? Or is he part of a party and an MP for Clacton? So, and as he would be working then with the Labour government, but he'd also be opposing them because he's a member of Reform. So I don't quite see how that would work. So,
they've done one very good thing, I think, quite recently, which is to put this letter into the government, basically asking for disclosure on all sorts of data and stats of the kind that we discuss often on here, to do with immigration and quite how it's affecting people socially and economically. And it's a big, long list. And I think that is a good, constructive thing to do. Why are you not telling people the truth about the various effects, which they're not, are they?
Yes, absolutely. I think so. But, him acting as our kind of unofficial foreign secretary at the moment, which kind of is what he's doing. I think there is a problem with his role or what he thinks his role is. I think you've just said that, but there's also this kind of television presenter thing. So he's half politician, half television presenter, half historical Nigel. Well, a third of each. Historical Nigel Farage. But more of that stuff, absolute focus on, again, this word disrupting, which is the takeaway for me for the Trump thing. Much more of that stuff would be very welcome.
Do you know, again, in the 1980s, you had this perfect, here's a 1980s word, synergy. You had Thatcher and Reagan, one of the two, a great partnership, very famous partnership, and therefore, it was like this constant flow backwards and forwards. I can't see that sort of happening. There seems to be something, as I said, so small about the Conservatives now and their various solutions, various ideas, policies, very, very small. Anyway, look, we had to end on a kind of downer note because we've been letting ourselves down. We've been full of joy today, like Kamala. Full of joy. But we're actually going to go on for a bit because we've got a little bit more to talk about for our exclusive members. So do become a member and then you can see the whole programme. But in the meantime, do remember at the beginning there, I said about the locals event. Go to locals@newcultureforum.org.uk. And also for the Smith Lecture, just go to newcultureforum.org.uk and all the information is there. Okay? Great to see you. Have a good week. Bye. Hello. If you're enjoying the New Culture Forum channel and you believe in our mission, may I invite you to join our membership scheme at the link below or on our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Our work is more important now than ever, and we have great plans ahead for the future, but we can't do it without your support. From as little as £3 per month, you can help ensure that we continue on our mission. As a member, you'll receive a range of benefits, including access to exclusive content, invitations to our private events, including here at our studios, free copies of our books, and much, much more, including, of course, our famous NCF mug. If you aren't able to become a member, then please help us by clicking this button and subscribing to our channel. It's completely free. Just remember to also click the bell icon so that you can get notifications when we post new videos. Thank you.